Imagine a young boy named Michael Kirk Douglas, born on September 25, 1944, in New Brunswick, New Jersey. He carried from day one a remarkable Hollywood legacy within his DNA. His father was Kirk Douglas, a towering figure in American film who had already started forging his own acting legend. His mother was Diana Dill, who came from a distinguished background herself. Yet behind that shimmering Hollywood connection lay a childhood that was anything but perfect. His parents divorced when he was only 6, leaving him caught between two households. That meant growing up without the steady presence of his famous father, whom he only got to see on special holidays or during select summertime visits to movie sets. Imagine how simultaneously magical and heartbreaking that might have been for a boy. One day he's running around a film studio, catching glimpses of glamorous actors and bustling technicians, and the next he's back to a quieter life, feeling a sense of distance from his father and all the cinematic dazzle Kirk's career entailed. Despite the complicated childhood, Michael was the type to push forward. He attended Eaglebrook School in Deerfield, Massachusetts, which set him a year behind in age compared to many of his classmates. But that didn't dull his ambition. He also went to the elite Choate School, holding his own in academic and social circles that were prestigious and, to many, intimidating. Spending summers with Kirk on movie sets must have felt like dipping his toes into another dimension, a realm of costumes, scripts, and bright studio lights. Perhaps that's when the acting bug first bit him. It nudged him to reject the well-trodden path that might have been laid out for a Yale-bound teenager, steering him instead toward the University of California, Santa Barbara. There, he decided to major in drama and fully commit to what felt like a calling, maybe a calling he could no longer ignore. He was no stranger to the criticism that might come with being the son of a Hollywood giant, but he refused to let that deter him. In his mind, he had something to prove, not just to onlookers who might shrug him off as the privileged offspring of Kirk Douglas, but to himself. When Michael finally reached New York, the city that crackles with opportunity for aspiring actors, he found that his golden surname opened some doors, yet also brought about extra scrutiny. Could he really act, or was he just coasting on the family name? Perhaps motivated by that question, he gave everything he had at every audition he could hustle for. He landed his first true break when he was cast in a pivotal role, a free-spirited scientist whose moral ideals clash with the temptation of a lucrative new job. Michael brought such conviction to the part that producers took notice. Soon he had the lead role in an adaptation of John Weston's controversial novel, Hail, Hero. This project was a big deal for a fledgling actor, especially because it was the first theatrical film produced by CBS's Cinema Center Films. No one wanted to disappoint, least of all Michael, who was trying to distinguish himself from the towering shadow of his father. And he did. Critics praised his performance, saying he radiated an earnestness that proved he was more than just a Hollywood kid. Hollywood seemed to wake up and realize that Michael might be a marketable star in his own right. Producer Quinn Martin spotted him in a segment of the FBI, a crime drama series, and decided he liked what he saw. Martin was in the middle of casting for a new police show titled The Streets of San Francisco, with Carl Malden as its leading man, a gruff, no-nonsense detective. Martin thought pairing the more seasoned Malden with a fresh face could bring a dynamic balance, so he brought Michael aboard to play the younger detective in training. The Streets of San Francisco premiered in September 1972 and shot up the ratings charts for ABC, becoming one of the network's top programs for much of the mid-70s. Audiences across America tuned in weekly to watch the chemistry between Malden and Douglas. Michael, no stranger to high expectations, now faced them head-on under millions of watchful eyes. He earned 3 successive Emmy Award nominations for his performance, an acknowledgement that, yes, he did have what it took to stand on his own. In a sign that the show recognized his ambitions, he even got to direct 2 episodes, a rare privilege for such a relatively young actor. All the while, a parallel dream was taking shape. Michael had long been intrigued by producing films, an interest that might have come in part from seeing how his father navigated Hollywood as both actor and behind-the-scenes creative force. Years before Kirk Douglas had purchased the rights to Ken Kesey's novel One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, envisioning it as a project in which he could star. But as time wore on, Kirk aged out of playing the main character, Randall McMurphy. Meanwhile, Michael recognized the potential goldmine lurking in that story. With unwavering determination, he began exploring possible financial backers. The vision was darkly humorous, hauntingly insightful, and definitely not the kind of typical Hollywood fare that guaranteed commercial success at the time. But he believed in it wholeheartedly. At last, Michael secured the support needed to bring the film to life. And though it was not an easy process, it proved worth the fight. The movie adaptation of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest exploded onto screens in 1975 and turned the cultural climate upside down. Jack Nicholson's mesmerizing performance as McMurphy anchored a cast that included Louise Fletcher as the chilling Nurse Ratched. Audiences were mesmerized, and critics lauded it as a brilliant piece of cinema. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest swept the Academy Awards, Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Screenplay. Its box office earnings soared past $180 million, a startling figure at that time, while Michael beamed with pride from behind the curtain, newly minted as a producer with a proven track record. This set the tone for the rest of his career. If he saw potential in a project, he would fight tirelessly for it. His acting career, meanwhile, kept humming along. He took diverse roles, sometimes picking ones that flirted with less typical Hollywood stories. In Running, 1979, he played a character tormented by an urge to push himself to the limit, a compulsive quitter who decides to attempt one final shot at Olympic glory. Though not a massive blockbuster, the film allowed Michael to flex his dramatic chops, revealing a nuance in his talent that extended beyond the nice guy detective persona that had made him famous on television. Around the same time, he appeared in Richard Attenborough's adaptation of the Broadway sensation A Chorus Line, stepping into the role of Zack, a demanding and dictatorial choreographer who presides over a grueling audition. Critics were mixed on the film, but Michael's willingness to go for it proved he was game for a variety of characters. Then came the mid-1980s, a period of both professional expansion and a shift in how audiences perceived him. He tried something new, a romantic adventure. Romancing the Stone, 1984, was a project Michael had been developing for quite a while. On paper, it looked whimsical. An uptight romance novelist, Kathleen Turner, goes to Colombia and gets swept into a real-life treasure hunt, complete with shady criminals and comedic mishaps. Michael took on the part of Jack Colton, a scruffy, reluctant hero. Also cast was Danny DeVito, a friend of Michael's from earlier days as the hilarious foil Ralph. Turner's comedic timing and fiery nature meshed perfectly with Michael's cocky charm, and DeVito provided energetic comic relief. Romancing the Stone raked in over $100 million and became that year's surprise smash. Overnight, Michael was recognized not only as a successful actor and producer, but also a proven comedic leading man. He even nabbed the National Association of Theater Owners Producer of the Year title in 1984. Sequel mania naturally followed. Michael, Turner, and DeVito reunited for The Jewel of the Nile, 1985. While not as praised by critics, it still performed well at the box office, solidifying Michael's place in the pantheon of bankable Hollywood names. But once again, he wouldn't be typecast or rest on the laurels of comedic success. After taking some time away from starring roles, he came roaring back in 1987 with two mega hits, Fatal Attraction and Wall Street. Fatal Attraction, co-starring Glenn Close, was a taut psychological thriller about infidelity gone horribly wrong. Audiences were glued to screens, both fascinated and horrified by the storyline of a scorned woman's obsession. The film soared at the box office, making it one of the year's top earners. If that weren't enough, Michael also delivered a searing performance as Gordon Gekko in Oliver Stone's Wall Street, playing a ruthless corporate raider who flaunts the credo greed is good. Gordon Gekko became a pop culture icon, and the role won Michael the Academy Award for Best Actor. That statue silenced any lingering critics, who still wondered if he was merely coasting on Family Ties. He kept on surprising people. In Ridley Scott's Black Rain, 1989, he portrayed a New York City cop tangled in the gritty underbelly of Osaka, Japan. The film was a stylish noir piece that flexed his action hero muscles. Not content to leave comedic territory behind, Michael reteamed with Kathleen Turner and Danny DeVito for The War of the Roses, 1989, a black comedy that traced the toxic unraveling of a marriage. Throughout these years, Michael never lost sight of the power he had as a producer to shape the projects he touched. He wasn't just picking roles that seemed certain to succeed. He was frequently drawn to material that had creative tension or sat at an interesting crossroads of drama and social commentary. By the early 1990s, he had another iconic performance under his belt. Teaming up with Demi Moore for Barry Levinson's Disclosure, 1994, Michael tackled a storyline about sexual harassment, though it twisted the usual dynamic by having Moore's character as the predatory boss. After, he embraced the comedic and political undertones of The American President, 1995, directed by Rob Reiner. As President Andrew Shepard, Michael gave viewers a glimpse into a fictional White House romance, illustrating that he could seamlessly pivot back to a gentler leading man persona. The film co-starred Annette Bening and offered a heartwarming take on political life. Standing apart from the more sinister corners of some of his other work, he then took a sharp left turn with The Game, 1997, partnering with director David Fincher for a relentless psychological thriller that also featured Sean Penn. Critics praised The Game for its mind-bending twists, while Michael's portrayal of a wealthy banker caught in a terrifying labyrinth of illusions left audiences unsettled and enthralled. A year later, in 1998, he starred opposite Gwyneth Paltrow and Viggo Mortensen in A Perfect Murder, a modern spin on Dial M for Murder, exploring themes of greed, betrayal, and cunning. Even though he could have coasted on his star status, Michael seemed determined to keep experimenting and resisting the pigeonhole. All the while, Michael was forming and reforming production companies. He saw the Hollywood landscape changing. New production companies were cropping up, and cable networks were on the rise. He wanted to keep making distinctive, relevant, and entertaining movies. So in 1998, he formed a fresh production house. One sign of his success as a producer was that he could finance or back projects that might otherwise struggle to find a home. He was also broadening his range, scouting opportunities to adapt books or screenplays that intrigued him. The year 2000 turned out to be a real milestone, both personally and professionally. First came Wonder Boys, directed by Curtis Hanson and starring Michael in the role of a college professor tangled in a midlife crisis. His character, Grady Tripp, faced comedic and poignant challenges, from writer's block to romantic entanglements. Co-starring Tobey Maguire, Frances McDormand, Robert Downey Jr., and Katie Holmes, the film won critical acclaim. Though not a runaway box office smash, it resonated powerfully with those who saw it. Michael's portrayal felt lived in and authentic, leading to nominations at the Golden Globes and the BAFTA Film Awards. The same year, Michael produced and co-starred in Traffic, directed by Steven Soderbergh, which dove headfirst into the complexities and moral quagmires of America's war on drugs. Stacked with an ensemble cast, Benicio del Toro, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Don Cheadle, and more, Traffic earned breathless praise. It was named Best Picture by the New York Film Critics Circle, won Best Ensemble Cast at the Screen Actors Guild Awards, and scooped up 4 Oscars. Critics credited it for taking a multifaceted look at drug trafficking, from law enforcement to politicians to desperate addicts, weaving together an unflinching tapestry of how deep the crisis ran. For Michael, it was yet another affirmation that he had a finger on the pulse of captivating storytelling. But behind the glitz, his personal life was evolving just as dramatically. Michael had married Diandra Luker in 1977, and they had a son, Cameron. The marriage eventually ended in a high-profile divorce, and Michael faced some personal lows that included time in rehab for alcohol addiction. Still, he reemerged to marry actress Catherine Zeta-Jones in 2000, forging a partnership that fascinated tabloid readers and fans alike, particularly because Catherine was 25 years younger. Their union produced 2 children, Dylan and Karis, and the family occasionally made red carpet appearances that gave the public glimpses of their home life. Michael, known for playing questionable characters, seemed to relish the role of devoted husband and father. Career momentum charged forward into the 2000s. He appeared in a guest role on the hit NBC comedy Will and Grace in 2002, demonstrating comedic flair and even garnering an Emmy nomination. In 2003, he starred alongside his father, Kirk Douglas, and his son Cameron in It Runs in the Family, a family drama that paralleled certain real-life dynamics. 3 generations of Douglases tackling love, conflict, and reconciliation. That project felt personal for Michael, an on-screen chance to collaborate intimately with Kirk, who had survived a severe stroke, and to share the screen with Cameron. Reviews were mixed, but it was a poignant milestone. In August 2010, he was diagnosed with a tumor at the base of his tongue, originally reported as throat cancer. He announced on Late Show with David Letterman that it was stage 4, a formidable blow for any person to confront, let alone a public figure whose livelihood depended on projecting vigor. He braced for weeks of radiation and chemotherapy, putting a brave face forward and vowing to fight. The illness forced him to slow down, which was something new in his otherwise frenetic life. Interviews from that period show him grappling with mortality and questioning how best to use whatever time he had left. Family, friends, and fans rallied around him with support. In 2011, New Jersey's Hall of Fame named him as a nominee for his contributions to arts and entertainment. 7 years later, in November 2018, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a crowning moment for someone whose father already had one. In the ceremony, he stood before an adoring crowd, beaming, his father Kirk by his side. It was a picture of resilience. Kirk was over a century old at that point, and Michael was in remission, proof that a Hollywood dynasty can endure health crises and heartbreak alike. Despite the ceremony's celebratory air, Michael's health journey was harrowing. He would speak publicly about the intense regimen of chemo and the mental toll it took, as well as the speculation surrounding his prognosis. He lost weight, his voice grew raspier, but he pressed on. At times, he clashed with certain rumors, including suggestions that perhaps he'd had tongue cancer rather than throat cancer. In subsequent interviews, he acknowledged that Stepping away from acting during this period to focus on recovery gave him time to reflect on fatherhood, marriage, and the legacy he wanted to leave behind. As the decade wound down, he found himself stepping back into bigger Hollywood productions, including the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He joined 2015's Ant-Man as Hank Pym, the original inventor of the shrinking technology. Younger audiences who might not have been as familiar with his earlier triumphs watched him with fresh eyes, while older fans marveled at how he had gone from the streets of San Francisco detective to Marvel's wise, fatherly scientist. He reprised the role in Ant-Man and the Wasp 2018 and Avengers Endgame 2019, weaving himself into yet another pop culture phenomenon. In interviews around that time, he reflected on how he'd come full circle, from that insecure child who rarely saw his dad to now collaborating with a new generation of filmmakers and perhaps giving his own kids a sense of the Hollywood swirl that once dazzled and confused him as a boy. Meanwhile, the stories about his father, Kirk, had become Hollywood legend. Kirk passed away in February 2020 at the age of 103. Michael Douglas's life and career are a testament to his extraordinary talent, perseverance, and passion for storytelling. From his iconic roles to his battle with cancer, he has shown the world the power of resilience and dedication. His legacy continues to inspire audiences and future generations of filmmakers. If you enjoyed this tribute to Michael Douglas, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories about Hollywood's most iconic figures. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.